Economic Development Committee of the Los Angeles City Council, and we are thrilled that you are with us today. We have an exciting, action-packed agenda on business improvement districts, all things bid. And so I look forward to an energetic discussion. Pleased to be joined by my colleagues, Paul Krikorian, Jose Huizar, Nuri Martinez, and I understand that Mr. Cedillo will be joining us momentarily. Without objection, members, we're going to move items 1, 2, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and items 12 and 13 on consent.
Pardon me, Mr. Chair.
Yes.
Richard Williams, City Clerk. And for the record, for item number 1, we have a CLA report with recommendations to be adopted. And for item number 2, we have a CAO report with recommendations.
Okay, thank you for that clarification.
Item number 2.
Members, any questions? Questions about that or any objections? Without any, those items will be so moved. And with that, we will move to item 3 for our first discussion. Mr. Clerk.
Item number 3 is a discussion relative to the Business Improvement District Program.
Okay, while we come forward, again, just want to reiterate, the importance of business improvement districts as a important tool in our economic development toolbox. There's some exciting examples around the city where bids have really helped to transform a community. And so we're very interested to know how this committee and the council can work with the bids to help them be more effective and more collaborative. In that vein, let's invite the members from the consortium. We have some representatives here from the bid consortium to come up also, and we'd like to give you an opportunity to talk about what you do and how you do it.
Just the 2? I'm not seeing anybody else.
Okay. So let's get started. Ms. Pastor, why don't you introduce yourself and give us the big picture.
Hello, my name is Miranda Pastor. I'm with the Office of the City Clerk. I am responsible for the oversight of the 39 business improvement districts in the City of Los Angeles. We have staff who represent us well with us also in the audience. And we have currently 12 business improvement districts that are currently in the process of being reviewed by us in the City Clerk's office for renewal and/or a new business improvement district. The Business Improvement District, the overall program, provides about $45 million in various programs and services that help to enhance their various commercial areas. The purpose of the Business Improvement Districts is to basically improve commerce in their areas. A group of bid proponents get together to decide what can help us do better. With the economy being the way that it is, the commercial areas want to improve business, and so they come together and decide maybe cleaning, security, marketing, those kind of services or special events can help to improve their areas. So they get together to form a business improvement district and work with us to establish a district. It takes approximately 18 months to a year to start a bid. If they have a problem with the proponents being on board or the property owners being on board, it can take much longer to start a business improvement district. We have currently 3 bids that, you have some that were on the agenda that are up for renewal: the Byzantine Latino Quarter, Greater Leimert Park, as well as Panorama City is really kind of detrimental for them to get through the process quickly. We have a great team of executive directors who are placed in charge of each business improvement district to implement the programs and services. There's a rep from your office assigned to each bid, did you say? We have bid analysts. We currently have 2 bid analysts who are responsible for the 39 bids and the proposed bids. But each bid is operated by a nonprofit via contract with the city. And each one of those nonprofits hires an executive director, and some have additional staff that implement the programs and services for each business improvement district. We also have, I don't know if I'm going too detailed on the program, but
No, just give us all the detail we need to have.
each year, the business improvement districts are required to turn in quarterly reports to us to let us know their financial status, what they're doing, and how they're spending the money. They have to spend the money, their funds, their assessment funds, in accordance with their management district plan and engineers report that is adopted by council. So my staff reviews that. They visit the bids, they work with them, they go to their annual meetings, and we work with them in their renewal process. We work with the consultants they hire for renewals. We also work with new bid proponent groups who want to establish a new business improvement district and helping to release a request for proposal to hire consultants, as well as work with them through all of the various stages in establishing a bid. Again, the stages include a feasibility study to see if the bid is feasible. It includes the submission of a database of assessees, the potential stakeholders who will be paying the assessments. It includes the development of a management district plan and engineers report. All of this is required by law. It includes, if it's a property-based bid, a 50% petition level in order of the weighted property owners to sign those petitions in order for that to move forward for council consideration. Requires adoption of an ordinance of intention that goes before council to announce the council's intent to establish a bid or to renew a bid, and a 45-day notice period for a public hearing. Then ballot tabulation, which is also required by Proposition 218, which is a weighted ballot of the property owners who send back their ballots in response to whether or not they want the bid to move forward or pass the bid. Then there's an ordinance of establishment that goes forward to council after the ballot tabulation, and 30 days after the mayor signs the ordinance and council adopts, the ordinance is effective and the bid is a living, breathing bid. Contract is executed, and hopefully it goes on the county's property tax rolls by August 1st. If it's a new bid, it has to get there by July 1st. And then the property taxes is placed on the county property tax rolls for collection.
Is there any direct financial support from the city to a bid being organized or in progress? What's the level of financial support from the city?
Usually in the initial phase, when a bid proponent contacts us, when they are ready to move forward, we provide matching funds from the bid trust fund in the amount of $40,000, and the bid proponents are required to obtain an additional $40,000, and that's for the consultant fees and doing the feasibility study and all the steps that lead up to.
And that's a straight contribution from the city, or is that reimbursed at some point?
Usually it's a straight contribution as long as funds are available. On occasion, there has not been funds available.
Yeah. Okay. And what else can the city do to encourage the formation of bids, to assist in the operation of bids, or to help facilitate the work of bids? What else can the city do, you think?
I'm glad you asked that question. I think that it can support the bid program in the budget. In addition to that, it's great
Support it how in the budget?
In supporting staff members and providing funds for it goes to the budget every year, the special assessments for city parcels, the general benefit portion, the any additional new bids, money for proposed bids. That's the budgetary support that we would ask for. In addition to that, we would ask for your assistance in talking about business improvement districts. I went to a conference in New York for the International Downtown Association, which is an international group for business improvement districts, and New York has 68 bids compared to our 39. And their commissioners, which are kind of like council members. They talk up bids, they talk about it, the mayor talks about bids and the benefits of bids, so I think continual help in marketing the bids. In addition to that, departmental support, ensuring that departments are working with us and coordinate with us on the activities that the business improvement districts need. They apply for permits to do some of the activities that they are implementing, such as they may do some sidewalk enhancements or some street modifications, tree planting, banners, those kind of activities, tree trimming. So continued cooperation from departments, ensuring that we have continued cooperation there, notification of various activities. We've had occasions where a bid might do a street improvement, and then there's a DWP project that comes behind it and tears up that improvement. So just kind of cooperation and coordination of activities to ensure the best possible output and productivity on both sides, the city is as well as the bids. The bids are, I mean, they're making a phenomenal difference in their areas. Just kind of to give a personal anecdote, I moved to Los Angeles in 1978, and I would shop downtown LA on Broadway, and I would go down there by myself shopping, and by the early 80s, I was afraid to go down there shopping, and now with business improvement districts and other projects, it's changing the way people are going to areas. One of the primary goals of business improvement districts is to increase pedestrian traffic, to increase commerce by attracting more pedestrians, improving commercial lease rates, and they have been very
So
effective.
it's a good selling point in the area when you can say there's a business improvement district.
Right. Was another thing that New York does that I think is really important too. It allows certain economic development activities of the city to go through the business improvement districts.
Like what?
I'd say like maybe a parking structure. A bid might manage a parking structure, and it gets the funds from that to help implement some of the activities in the bid.
Any precedents like that in LA where bids are
Not that I'm
operating
aware of. Pasadena has it, but the city of LA, we have not had any such projects. But I think the bids could be a very good economic development tool, a public-private partnership for better explanation with the city. I think that right now the bids have their own management district plans and engineers reports that have their projects laid out, but there's nothing stopping the city to continue working with them in other aspects or areas. One other thing that I want to do is provide more training. And New York provides board training to help boards to be the most effective that they can be. They have a executive leadership training that can help some of the executive directors of some of our business improvement districts. Some of our leaders in the bids are volunteers. Some of them are paid. And so I think it would be very good if we have resources that can assist in making them the best bids that they can be.
Do we provide any kind of training now?
We do what we call best practices.
Right at the formation time of formation only, right? Is there any follow-up?
But one of the things that I've added to our RFP scope is to have, as consultants work with a business improvement district, is to help them get off their feet on their feet. In the past, they would just get the bid established, and the bid's thinking, well, what's the next step? And so I think it behooves the consultant to work with that bid to help them get whatever it is in place that they need, their insurance, whatever it is, so that they can begin operation. I think it would also, if you have that leadership training, anyone starting with a new bid, that leadership training would be available to help them to know what to do, as well as new boards, because a lot of times you have the boards who are operating the nonprofit, and these boards are established as a result of this bid being formed. So it would be great to have training for those boards so that they can be more effective and obviously run the bids in an efficient and effective manner.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not trying to say negative things about the bids or the boards, but I think that
They can be better, you're saying?
they can do, some of them can do
We
better.
want better, so that's good.
Right. And we have a meeting of the various bids once a month, and it's called the Los Angeles Bid Consortium, and we have Jessica Law is the chairperson of the LA Bid Consortium. Unfortunately, she's out with the flu, which a lot of people are these days, out with the flu, and so we have some additional people here to help in talking about the LEB Consortium.
Okay. Before we hear from the consortium members, any questions of? Yes.
Well, I have a question about one of my bids in my district. So there are some concerns from the Panorama City bid folks in terms of the delays and how long it's taken for their renewal process to be done. So can you provide me with a status report and the timeline of what needs to get done in order to make sure that
Sure.
that we approve that as soon as we can? Because they can actually cease operating at the end of February, so I'm really concerned about that.
Okay. I have, with the Panorama City bid, they submitted their initial management district plan last year, February of 2013. And currently, there's been an additional process added where city attorney is involved in our review process, which adds a little time to the review. The concerns that were noted were we talked to the consultant in February, and our next draft was received in September. So usually, and I've been talking to some of the consultants and explaining to them that they need to have a faster turnaround on getting the revisions to us. Currently, for any bids that are expiring this year and they want to get their assessments placed on the county tax rolls, they need to have their plan completed by March 1st, completed and reviewed by us and the city attorney by March 1st in order to make it on the county tax rolls. That is to get through the council process, committee, council, the hearing notice process, the balloting, in order to make that deadline. We explained to them that it takes 18 months. We send letters out 18 months prior to the initial start, but the consultants, they don't always respond in a timely manner. In this case, we are working with them, and I think we just got a new draft on 122, which we've reviewed and forwarded to the city attorney, and the city attorney will review it as soon as they can. So the next...
How long will it take the city attorney to review that?
She's been doing a pretty good job in the last 2 weeks and turning them around quickly, so I'd say about 2 weeks.
All right, thank you. And at some point, are the bids, is this program going to be transferred to the new Economic Development Department, or?
It's currently slated to go to the new Economic and Workforce Development Department. They are making some physical changes to the location, and currently the date for the move is July 1st.
And how many
Or
in
soon
your office?
thereafter.
How large is your office now? How many are going to be transferred over?
We have 12 individuals who are working, and we had 2 positions that were approved, and we're waiting on personnel and CAO approval, and if they approve those, we'll have 14 positions moving over to Economic and Workforce Development Department. And just for the information, when the bids don't make the deadline for data submission, if the bid doesn't go through council in time, it means that we have to hand bill those business improvement districts, which means they don't get all of the money they need, because when it goes on the county property tax rolls, people pay their taxes because they know the county can take their properties. However, when we send our bills to them, I think they probably chuckle a little bit and don't pay them. So it's really imperative that they make make the tax rolls. We currently have 3, Panorama City included, Byzantine Latino Quarter, and Greater Leimert Park, who will not make that deadline.
Good.
Or didn't make it for last year. So hopefully they make it for their second year of assessments this year.
Members, any?
Thank you. Well, first,
Mr. Huizar.
no doubt that the bids help the city and their local communities in tremendous ways, because not only do they help the local community in helping with safety and having them clean, but also it's work that otherwise probably wouldn't get done because the city just doesn't have sufficient funds to do some of this work. But my question is, if you look at some of the economic development activity that's happened recently in downtown, a lot of it could be credited to the bids who provide a safer and cleaner area. And you also look at other places like Old Town Pasadena that is overseen by a bid, so to speak. And one of my initiatives on downtown called Bringing Back Broadway, it's been led in large effort by my staff, who, given our staff's limited resources, I don't think we could always expend that many resources to one particular area. But in Old Town Pasadena, I understand, or I may be wrong, that some of the bids have broader parameters as to what they can do, right? It's not only cleaning and providing safety, but they also are involved in some of the planning issues and work, I think, more hand in hand with the city in providing some of the marketing, coming up with policies that make sense, collectively planning for the future of that area. What is it that we need to do as a city, I think, because it's beneficial to us, to get to that point? Is it policies or ordinances that we need to change to empower the bids more, or am I wrong in the way I'm looking at what the framework is?
I don't believe you're wrong. I think you're right on target. I've gone to some of these other conferences, as well as talked to other cities and what they're doing with their business improvement districts and the liaisons and cooperative efforts that they engage in or contract with the bids to do, and I think you're right on target. I think that it involves planning and with the new development of the Economic and Workforce Development Department, working with that department and working with a nonprofit or establishing your own nonprofit to work together to create economic development opportunities. What you have in smaller cities is that you have lots of times in one office, you have the people who can come together and make a decision to get for some kind of economic development activity. But what you have in the city is a bureaucracy that kind of isn't so much, it adds to the process of getting an economic development activity approved. You have to go through planning, you have to go through building and safety, you have to go through so much to get something done, maybe the mayor's office too, whereas in smaller cities they're able to make their wheel turn really easily, whereas us, we have to go through the committee process, council. I'm not saying that's all wrong, but it just, and you've got to get the departments on board, and sometimes there's more than one department that's involved, and so by the time you can get it moving, a year has gone down, and the economic development opportunity might not be there. So I think maybe having a nonprofit created to work with the department and the bids to help facilitate, I want to call it faster process in approving economic development activities.
Sometimes I feel like we have an audience or willing stakeholders who want to do more, but they have to kind of go to the city asking for things, rather than what I've seen in other cities without really looking into it. It's just anecdotally. They just work with the city hand in hand. They're already there. They have the power to do it. And so I'm very interested in seeing what types of regulations we need to change to give them that. So, for example, if they want to pass a new design overlay for a local neighborhood, and I've seen some business improvement districts already wanting to do this, but then they become the applicant rather than part of the process already to make that happen. Some of our bids are already doing a lot in those areas, but I just feel like instead of them coming to the city asking for things, we should already be there and having given them the power to do that in a much simpler and quicker way than they would otherwise. I mean, the overlay zone is just one example of.
I think that one of the things I've always indicated, especially at our LAB consortium meetings and to whomever will listen, is that we need more cooperation. I call it cooperation, but really coordination of efforts between the city departments and the bids. I think that sometimes in some cases not everybody knows what a bid is or what a bid is capable of, and just like neighborhood councils, I think bids could, in some cases have a right or can have valuable input to a decision process.
Yeah.
And I think that one of the things that I'd like to see happen too, and plan on working on in the very near future, is asking each council office to have a designated liaison for the business improvement district, so that we can call and contact. We know who that person is, and when the bids need something, they can call that person and get it done, or as well as departmental contacts for the relevant departments. They don't need it with every department, but if there was established list of contacts for the departments and the council offices, so that we can begin a dialogue and get more of a concerted effort, as well as their voice or needs known, it would be very beneficial.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, don't leave.
I was going to introduce
You may.
my cohorts here.
You may.
We have Kent Smith from the Fashion District, Business Improvement District, and we also have Tara Devine helping to represent the South Park and the LA Big Consortium. Tara is a consultant working with Jessica Law, and again, Jessica is out ill today, so she could not be here today.
Well, we look forward to your insights. Kent?
Well, maybe just a couple of comments. I think, as Miranda said, I'm Kent Smith. I'm the executive director of the LA Fashion District bid in downtown LA. And I think, as Miranda said, this is a real partnership with the city. And we have property owners, in our case, merchants in other bids, who are agreeing to assess themselves over and above what they pay in their property taxes to fund services. And in the case of the Fashion District, we're a little more than $4 million a year is our budget. We're proud that we're the first property-based business improvement district in the city of LA. There's now dozens of property-based BIDs throughout the city. And, they basically are spending, in our case, it's over 90% of our funds are spent in the public realm, on the streets and sidewalks of the city of LA. And it's doing things like I said, over and above what the city does, whether it's providing a safe team to act as the eyes and ears of LAPD, sweeping and picking up trash, pressure washing sidewalks, painting out graffiti, and trimming trees. And we're even paying for electricity on a median at 9th and Main. The bid is picking up those costs. We in downtown helped install a wayfinding signage system, working with all the bids. So when the question's asked, Councilmember Weezer asked about, are there things that we can do over and above what we've traditionally been doing, whether it be economic development or planning? The short answer is absolutely yes. We'd love to get more involved. However, there are some constraints, and one of the constraints is this whole issue that Miranda mentioned, briefly touched on, is the whole issue of general versus special benefit. And, we have a Prop 218 in the California Constitution that says that these assessments can only be spent on activities that benefit the specific parcel involved in the bid. The challenge when we move towards things that start to benefit larger groups of folks than just our bid, then we run into issues with the city, the city attorney trying to keep us very much on the straight and narrow of keeping our special assessments for the purposes of benefiting those properties within the boundaries. Sometimes, one of the reasons we established the bid consortium, I'm a former chair of that, is that we wanted to bring, on a volunteer basis, bring all the bids together in the city of LA to share best practices, to talk to each other, because, sometimes we're only as good as our weakest link. And, we want to try to keep the bids functioning well, working on basically improving the commercial areas of the city. And I think if you look...
How long has that consortium been in existence now?
I'm going to say it's been there since around 2000, so it's nearly 15 years.
And it meets annually, monthly?
Meets monthly, and we have no real formal structure. I mean, somebody volunteers to chair it on an annual or, a couple of year basis. And it's just a real opportunity. It allows us to bring members of different departments to those meetings, and really just the chance to share information. As Miranda mentioned, some of us are full-time, some of us are volunteer in terms of, depending on, the budgets. We like to help each other. We like to steal ideas from each other, and I think it's sort of a compliment when that happens. So and in the case of new commercial areas, I know I'm sure my colleagues have gone out and talked to. I've been out to Venice. I've been to South LA. I've been in a number of places, on my time to help with property owners or merchants who are interested in establishing bids. And I think all of us are really interested in seeing more bids in the city of LA. It is a real strong economic development tool.
Tara?
Hello, council members, and I just want to thank you for your time today and the opportunity to talk a little bit about bids. I'll admit I'm here with a clear agenda. I am an unabashed supporter and believer in the work that bids do, and I think it's very much my hope that amongst you there are some who are already really convinced of the benefit that they can have for your districts, and that there are also some of you, especially some of the newer council members, who hopefully will become huge supporters of bids and the good work that they do. I also just want to take a moment to acknowledge we do have a couple of other past consortium chairs and some other bid management staff in the audience. Lori Hughes and Sarah McPherson-Besley are both former chairs of the consortium representing the Gateway to LAX bid, and the Hollywood and Vine and Hollywood Entertainment bid for Sarah. And we also have Mike Russell from the Wilshire Center bid, and Noel Hyun Fleming from Downtown Center bid. So all of them came out today.
Let me invite you, anyone up who'd like to come and share a thought.
And all of them are happy to answer questions.
Those of you that are
like that.
representing other bids, you're welcome to come up to the table and join this conversation.
So I just wanted to add a couple brief things to Ken's comments. The reason why I believe that bids are truly a wonderful thing is that they are a rising tide that lifts all boats. They are the ultimate in public-private partnership. And one of the reasons that I think they are so successful is because they operate on two levels. Bids essentially truly have two faces. And for bid management, for the folks who are involved in operating them and running them, they wear a public hat and they wear a private hat, and they take them on and off all day long. The backside of bids and how they're managed, the oversight process, the interaction with the city clerk's office, the city attorney's office, the interaction with elected officials and the city departments is all very much bureaucratic and political. With regards to their stakeholders, their board members get to know a little bit of the inner workings of bids, but what most people in a business improvement district see are the private sector style results. They see the fact that they can call and graffiti is removed in an hour instead of 48 hours.
Or longer.
Yes. They know that, if their employee needs an escort, they can call and someone will be there in 10 minutes to walk somebody to their car. It's that private sector responsiveness that is what gets them established and gets them renewed. One of the things that I suspect, if I put myself in your shoes, attempt to put myself in your shoes for a moment, things that I think you would most want to know. How can I use bids as an economic development tool, especially in the post-CRA era? I imagine that all of you are struggling daily with parts of your district that you really want to help revitalize and you don't know what to do about them. So I'm going to rain on your parade, and then I'm going to provide some sunshine. And I'm going to say a bid is not a catch-all solution for any area of your district that has problems. There really are areas that are right for bids today, and there are areas of your district that are right for bids someday down the road. And this is all, in my personal opinion, and my many years of experience working with a lot of bids and working with some unsuccessful formations. Some of the things that you should look for in your district, if you are serious about putting a little bit of your resources or energy behind forming a bid in your district, you need to look for leaders. You need to find an area in your district that has some organic leaders. If it's one person, if it's 3 people, more the better, but some people who are of strong opinions, the kinds of people who can have those peer-to-peer conversations and energize and invigorate more of their fellow property owners. Because I will tell you, having sat in groups of property owners, there is only so much that a bid consultant or a bid staff person or even elected official can do to tell someone you ought to pay more in taxes than you already do, because without it, you won't get the level of service that you want for your property. At the end of the day, the peer-to-peer conversation is what is most powerful. So you should look for areas in your district that have potential, that have some basic infrastructure or attraction or something that is underutilized. It might be a commercial area that used to be successful and is now run down, et cetera. One of the things that is great that you can do is to try and put some of those seeds of resources in there. A lot of times, just by putting a little bit of money into that community, use that investment to make contacts, to build support, to convince property owners that you have a vision for the area. And then ask property owners if they're interested in learning more about business improvement districts. There are lots of folks in the bid community who'd be happy to go out. City Clerk's office will go out and talk to interested groups about what's involved in formation. The other things that make for a successful bid, community outreach. The more the better, and the earlier the better. I have seen many well-intended council members introduce motions to form bids without really, from the absolute best intentions of, this is an area, I know it has potential, something should be happening here, I want to make it happen. So I'm going to try and form a bid here, and I'm going to put all the weight of my office behind it. If you don't have people with you, if you don't have property owners with you, if you don't have one or two vocal community leaders or people who can help you bring in other people, odds are you will struggle and you may not be successful. So it's never too early to build that community support, to try and bring in voices that may not be participating in government, that may not be participating in the public discussion. Try to bring those people in. So think about that in all your contacts with the public. When you're meeting a property owner, think about an opportunity to say, do you know anything about bids? Have you heard anything about them? Would you be interested in knowing more about them? Things like that. And start reading that awareness. By the time you introduce a motion to form a bid, ideally you should have at least a small group of folks who really like this idea and who want to champion and who want to put a little bit of time and energy into it too. Without that, you will struggle. And lastly, when you go through the formation process, the other thing that's important is to make sure that the plan that they come up with really reflects the priorities of the owners in the district. Business improvement districts exist all over the U.S. They vary considerably in the rules that govern them from state to state, and they also vary even more so in just practice, in the things that they choose to do. There are often regional areas that sort of follow a particular path of services or things like that. In most of the country, almost all bids provide maintenance or marketing or both. Above and beyond that, there's a whole wide variety of things that bids across the country do. It is also true that LA does not really have any formal method or any serious history of partnering with bids on larger initiatives. Bids
Now, is that because of legal limitations? Limitations in California law as it relates to bids, or?
I would say there are, California has a few unique legal issues that constrain some of the things that we do, but overall I think it is more of a larger public policy / momentum type of thing. Your neighbors to the south and north, both Pasadena and Long Beach, the city departments give non-assessment dollars, actual economic development funding dollars to the bids to administer programs in those areas.
Like what kind of programs?
I know Pasadena does the parking program. I forget, but downtown Long Beach, I think, receives a couple $1 million from the city department's Department of Development Services. But I do not remember the exact nature of the programs that they provide, but I can find that out for you.
And New York has small business loans that the bids
administer?
That the bids administer, as well as during after Hurricane Sandy, they had funds. They did fundraising as well, and they used funds to help businesses get back on their feet.
Mr. Chair, can I ask, in Pasadena, what model do they use?
Well, everybody has.
For Old Town Pasadena. Yeah.
In this, I don't know their bid management district plans.
It is a property base.
But in the city of, in the California, we have the Streets and Highways Code, and most cities use that same Streets and Highways Code that we use, the property-based bids. And under that law, you're able to do street lighting, marketing, economic development, maintenance activity. You can do structural capital improvements, but that's one thing that the city of Los Angeles kind of, I don't know what it shuns or Right.
Well, I
because-
think, there's certainly some interest of members on this committee, I think, of exploring some of those opportunities.
We
in ways that we haven't before.
We've informally worked with street services in the MTA call for proposals. We've gone in and helped with the application, even put a small amount of money in it. Probably most importantly, agreed to look after the improvements once the capital costs have been spent. And we've been successful on 2 MTA call for proposals. And I think, there's really a lot more opportunity that could exist on those kind of projects. The city of LA hasn't been, especially lately, hasn't been competing all that well in those call for proposals compared to some of our competitive municipalities.
And you think that the bid involvement, depending on where the bid is, but the involvement from a bid would enhance some of those applications and efforts?
Absolutely.
We've got some more guests at the table.
Good afternoon. I'm Sarah Besley. I'm from the Hollywood Property Owners Alliance, and we manage both the Hollywood Entertainment District and the Sunset and Vine bid. And I just wanted to actually take the moment to thank the staff, the city clerk staff, for being perhaps our greatest partner in the city. They've been working tirelessly to get our management district plans through a very arduous process, and they've always been very supportive. And I think I'd like to thank the city council for recently approving the allocation for staff and the transfer over to the economic development department. And I would like to see further cooperation, certainly on the city attorney side, to make sure that bids are continuing to do the work that they do.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. I'm Lori Hughes, and I represent Gateway to LA, which is at LAX, as if you didn't know. With respect to Councilman Weisar's question, I just want to give you an example of an opportunity that we have because we are near LAX, and we are working with LAWA on economic development for our area, as they are working with Metro and LAWA and the various ideas that they're putting forth on the transportation development in and around our area. We are very much a part of that process, and they are working with us. They use their staff, LAWA, to apply for grants and get grant money, to work with planning, and we're looking at doing an overlay zone, and anyway, it's a very cooperative relationship we have with them. They're a member of the bid, have several properties in the bid, but we just very lucky to have a major player in the city like that right in our back door, and I see good things for the area.
Good afternoon. My name is Gary Russell. I'm the Executive Director of the Wilshire Center Business Improvement District.
I'm sorry, which one, Gary?
Gary Russell with the Wilshire Center Business Improvement District.
Where is that?
It's basically in Koreatown area. They're along Wilshire Boulevard, basically from Hoover to Wilton Place to 8th to 3rd Street. We were actually we're the first bid, not the first property bid, but the first bid. We beat Ken by, I think, 6 months, 1995. You notice he says property bid. But being one of the oldest bids in L.A.
We're not competitive.
It's interesting you actually mentioned that. Teasing. But been around for a long time, and we've seen a lot of improvements. And also, as my profession as an architect, as an urban planner, I always saw the bid when we first started it back in '95 as a planning tool, as an urban revitalization tool to help bring back that area of LA. And if you remember back in '95, the Wilshire Center Koreatown area, we were devastated by the riots, the disturbance that went through '92, the MTA construction. They raised the street 3 feet. We were losing tenants left and right. Bullock's closed. Ambassador closed. All the major corporations were leaving the area. In fact, when there was a famous writer, L.A. writer, said this Wilshire Center, the Koreatown area, is going to become a ghost town. We said, no, we don't think it. We think there's a lot of asset value here and value to be maintained. So we formed a bid, created a project called the Streetscape Project, raised $6 million, provided that streetscape now down Wilshire Boulevard, you'll see from Hoover to Wilton, that we obviously then maintain, which is actually one of the reasons why the bid came about, actually, because we needed to do something to improve the area. So the Streetscape Project was one way. But the city said, well, yeah, we'll let you raise the money and, get it built. And they actually cooperated with us. Actually, DOT did. But somebody's going to maintain it. The city's not going to maintain that Streetscape Project. So from that point, we formed the bid. And then from that, I and others, we learned through the values of bids what other things bids can do. We had then security, maintenance, and marketing and other kinds of tools to it. So I'm a great believer, as many as here at the table and who've been here for a long time, believe this is a great tool for urban revitalization, economic development. How do we make a walkable city, a walkable city, a village, an urban village, a pedestrian-friendly environment? Well, you need to make it safe and clean. Well, that's what we do. In partnership with this, with the city. Without that partnership, we wouldn't be able to do what we do. In fact, we partnered very closely with the CRA when it was about for 10 years. And we would do matching funds with each other, put on joint events. We did a Earth Day event, first LA Earth Day event what we called Car Free Day in LA. We actually closed off Wilshire Boulevard and tried again, get people involved in environmental issues and things like that. And we continue to do that with our own members through building efficiency programs and other things. So there's a lot that we can do that, in a small unit that we know, and we know our neighborhood well, that if city council and other departments work with us, then we can enhance all of us and make it even a greater city. Thank you.
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, I have one or two more comments.
Okay.
One of the things I wanted to mention, we have property-based bids, which are based on the parcel. We have business-based bids, which are based on generally a type of business, which is Gary Russell's type bid is a business-based bid. And we also have one tourism-based bid, which is the Los Angeles Tourism Marketing District, and we have various members here who are
we're going to be
do a
hearing from them next.
presentation. Right. Also, and the one last thing where I believe that we would need support from the council as well as city attorney is support of legislation that supports bids as well as consideration of bids when legislation is being passed by council that could affect them and how they do business.
Just one last little point, actually one more critical component of all I've been talking about, is actually anything the council can do to add additional support to Miranda's department, the assessment unit, I guess the neighborhood business department. It would be greatly enhance all of our ability. She says she has two individuals who actually review these projects. You're not 39 right now. I mean, we want to grow more of them, right? Well, those two are getting even more burdened with more work. And then my review process, which started back in September, is now at this committee meeting today. Our funds won't start rolling in until April, because it's just the way the process works. So if anything can be done to add one or two more staff people at that level would greatly help facilitate all our work.
Sir, I'm sorry, you just said something that caught my attention. Your renewal process started in September, and we're approving it today?
Well, at committee level.
18 months?
Huh?
Well, business-based are a little faster because they don't have to go through the petition process.
Yeah.
Once a
I'm just
business-based
trying to
bid,
fast
Renew.
track my Panorama City bid. That's
Yeah,
all.
no.
If
In
I
the
have to
formation
make that
process, it's
very clear,
longer.
I'll
It's
make it
formation.
clear again.
We're doing a renewal. Even renewal is, yeah.
All right, thank you. I didn't mean to put you on the
Sorry.
spot, but
That's
that
okay.
quickly got my attention.
All right, very good, yeah.
I was moving fast here, I guess.
No, I'm
Not
paying
not fast
attention.
enough.
I'm paying
Not
attention.
fast enough.
I would just like to add that, the city clerk's office, all of her staff, Miranda, do a great job. It would also help the city if you would support sending her to this IDA conference that is every year, because that's where you learn from other cities. And the bids have been paying for Miranda to go because there was no money in the city. And, I mean, it serves you best to have participant there. You know, she comes back with all these classes that, you know, that we take, these best practices or these ideas, what's going on in New York or Chicago.
Where's the first conference being held at?
Actually, Ottawa.
Where?
Ottawa, Canada.
Wow.
Is there a statewide association also?
The California Downtown Association, which, are you still a member?
Yes,
You're still on the
yeah.
board? We're a
Yeah.
member, but you're still on the board.
Yeah, conference is going to be in the spring in San Diego.
Have we ever hosted the conference in Los Angeles?
Yes, in
Hollywood.
2000 we did.
If it's a national conference, what's it doing in Canada?
International.
That's the internet.
IDA is international and includes a
Okay.
lot of Canadian members as well, so
They're taking that too.
All right.
the conference bounces around, but this year it's in Canada.
Well, we want to thank you for your testimony. You've given us some very interesting ideas and a little better insight on what an effective tool bids have been and can be in our city. I think certainly at a minimum, we want to encourage our colleagues to identify someone in their offices to work with your office to help facilitate and help provide some information on bids. And I think we all will be a lot more sensitive to some of the budgetary issues associated with bids and how they're operating in the city. We were joined belatedly by our colleague Gil Cedillo. Gil, any comments or thoughts on this exciting
No, I'm
process?
a big fan and big supporter, particularly the heroic work that was done on Wilshire. Atlas Bar and Grill was right there at the corner when we were trying to build the metro.
Is that still there?
No,
No, it was a great spot. I remember that. Yeah. We've got two cards here, and I don't know, Tara and Kent, if you want to add anything else to your statements, but we appreciate the testimony of all of you, and keep up the good work. Keep us close.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we're going to. We're going to move on to item 11. We have our friends here from the LA Tourism and Marketing bid. An interesting.
Item number 11 is a city clerk report relative to the fiscal year 2013-2014 annual planning report for the Los Angeles Tourism Marketing bid.
Well, welcome.
Thank you so much, Councilman.
Now, some didn't know that that the LA Tourism and Marketing bid was established, I think, in 2011.
That's correct.
So tell us about it, what you're doing and how you do it.
First of all, I'd like to thank the council and this committee for the opportunity to share with you information about the LA Tourism Board and our tourism marketing, TMD, tourism marketing bid. My name is Ernest Wooden. I'm the president and CEO of LA Tourism, and we contract with the Los Angeles Tourism Marketing District, the bid, to perform sales and marketing services on behalf of that bid. I've provided under separate cover a colorful slide presentation that I'd like to walk you through that will help you to understand a little bit about how we go about doing what we do and what we're commissioned to do. I'm going to share a bit of an overview of the tourism business in Los Angeles, the economy. We're going to talk about the bid itself and how it helps us to provide additional sales ammunition to bringing tourists to the city, marketing, and then finally a little bit about our renewal process, which has been a subject that...
I don't want to cut your presentation short, but be mindful we do have another committee starting in about 20 minutes.
20 minutes. I'll speak very quickly. Thank you. Thank you for offering that. First of all, tourism. We were able to entice more than 42 million tourists to come to Los Angeles. It's one of the most exciting jobs in the city because Los Angeles is one of the most aspirational vacation destinations in the world, and especially in the United States. Those 42 million people last year spent or had an economic impact of more than $30 billion on the city. by virtue of paying what are called TOT taxes, transient occupancy taxes, TMD taxes, sales taxes, etc. In California, there are more than 80 tourism marketing districts from places like San Diego, San Francisco, all over the city, all over the state. Our marketing district, our bid, was established in June of 2011, and we represent more than 168 hotels. And I should be very specific that the self-assessment was done on the part of the hotel community to augment the available funding that LA Tourism received from the city by virtue of the TOT tax. The 168 hotels that self-assessed are hotels that are 50 rooms or more. And when the TMD was voted on by that group of hotels, more than 81% of them approved this self-assessment. The TMD is governed by a board of directors. Javier Cano is the chairman of that board of directors. Those of you that know Javier, he's the general manager of the Ritz-Carlton and Marriott Hotel at LA Live. He is the chairman of our LATMD Board of Directors. And that group contracts with the LA Tourism Board to implement the TMD management plan. So what does that management plan enable us to do? Well, it basically supports two activities that LA Tourism is responsible for. One is direct selling, that is getting folks to come to our city either to stay in hotels or more specifically conventions into our city. And it also allows us to spend marketing dollars, which raises the awareness of Los Angeles as a destination. So on slide number 5, in terms of sales highlights, what we've been able to do with the Tourism Marketing District funds is to grow our core sales staff from 4 people to 11 people. We've also been able to establish destination sales teams. This is relatively important for all council members because what we're able to do in this city, we have a unique city here. We're a horizontal city, as opposed to New York, which you might describe as a vertical city. Each one of our districts have unique personalities, if you will. And so we've been able, through the TMD funding, to develop sales teams that are specifically educated in those various regions around Los Angeles that we represent. That's important because as we bring different kinds of tourists in or invited guests in, they have oftentimes different interests. Some are interested in beach communities, some are interested or need to be near the LAX area, others in Hollywood, etc. So we have specialists in each one of those areas. One of our jobs is to go out and find leads. That's pieces of business all over the country. We have salespeople that are feeding us leads. This current year, 13, we were able to increase our lead generation by almost 15%, as well as our bookings year over year. We were able to bring in 15% more contracts, pieces of business into the city to stay in our hotels. We have been able to represent Los Angeles in more than 75 trade shows around the United States and around the world. These are trade shows where buyers, for a variety of different reasons, are coming to make a decision as to where to take their groups. And so you can see some pictures on the bottom. That's what a typical trade show might look like, with the Los Angeles booth, where we're having specific appointments with various buyers around the world, enticing them to come to Los Angeles during their next rotation. Slide 6. In the marketing area, one important thing that we were able to do was to develop a research insights group. That's a research group that would spend its time understanding consumer insights. Important to understand what consumers think about LA before we spend our money merchandising LA. And so we've spent a great deal of our time understanding the particular nuances of different kinds of groups, from the BET experience to the Rose Bowl, others that come into the city, why they come into the city. And we do that because it helps us to better think about and plan how we're going to bring similar types of groups into the city in the future. So some of the marketing monies that we were able to get from the TMD helped us to develop this now country-renowned research group at the LA Tourism Board. Of course, advertising is one of the goals that we have with those dollars. We launched our first ever consumer advertising effort last year. We're in the process of right now we're shooting the second phase of that. That's more than a $5 million advertising campaign focused on specific cities that feed into Los Angeles. Think Phoenix, think San Diego, think San Francisco, for example. These are cities where people come to LA for the weekend. We're headlining in all their evening news, enticing them to come into Los Angeles. We're shooting a second phase of advertising as we speak today, this week, and next, and we hope by the end of March we'll be ready for the summer season to be able to do more of that. Consumer promotions is part of what we do, and very important part of what we do is digital and social mining. As we all know, the digital world is a big world. I'll talk more about that in the following slide, but we have a very robust digital marketing team as a result of the TMD dollars that we did not have before. In terms of consumer advertising, I shared that we had our first TV advertising in more than 5 years in 6 markets. We launched the spring media advertising in March of 2014. I've mentioned some of the cities where we have advertised domestically, but we are also spreading our wings and advertising digitally in important cities around the world, including Australia, Canada, United Kingdom, China. Very, very important, our #1 overseas market. In terms of media, we all know there's 2 ways of getting into media. One is to buy the media, but the best way of getting into the media is by having the media write about you. And that's an outreach, a media outreach, where you bring media writers from around the world and you show off LA. Well, we were particularly happy last year because we got more than $34 million worth of free public relations, if you will, talking about Los Angeles as the place to visit. In fact, if any of you get the New York Times about 2 Sundays ago, the 40 top places that you want to go to in the world in 2014, because of the efforts that we were able to supply to those writers through the TMD funding, Los Angeles was #5 in the world as the place that you wanted to visit, one of those you must check it off your box to do. But for Los Angeles to come in #5 in the world was quite an accomplishment. That counts with the $34 million. We had the Today Show shoot here for more than 2 weeks. If any of you watch the, what's their name again? Kathy and Hoda on the Today Show. They shot here for more than 2 weeks, last awards season, every single day in a different part of the city. We got extraordinary exposure as a result of that. We wanted to show that to you today, but we didn't have the video ability to do that. We'll do that separately when we visit you.
Did they consult with you on where they should be?
Oh, yes, absolutely. In fact, they wanted to only come during the Oscars for one night. And we said, well, no, we want you to come and stay for a couple of weeks. They said, really? What would you do for a couple of weeks? And so we went about a whole process of enticing them by all of the wonderful things we have in L.A. And what we got for them was, who'd have known that? Who knows this? And so they decided to shoot here every day for 2 weeks. And every single morning for 2 weeks, they were in a different part of our great city. And the number of people that watched it around the country was enormous. I think it was 9 or 10 million people. And they did that twice. They showed it later, in the between when they're not shooting live. They showed that entire sequence later. So these are the kinds of things that we were able to do as a direct result of the tourism marketing district. I mentioned, in the interest of time, the digital efforts, our outreach. We have a very robust digital marketing team. Our website, if you haven't gone to it, has won international awards. It's a very deep, robust website. It's discoverla.com. discoverlosangeles.com. Last year, it brought in 6.5 million people that dialed into that website. It was a 15% increase year over year. We are the only city in the world, other than Berlin, that now has more than 1 million Facebook friends. We have 1.5 million. Why Berlin, I don't know, but Los Angeles has got more than 1 million Facebook friends. We are in the process this week. We'll be introducing a new optimized mobile website, which means your telephone will be able to do everything that your computer will do. That's a very important shift in the way people are thinking about travel toward mobile devices, so it was important that we get that done. As of the end of this week, we will have a brand new website in China. In the China market, it will be as robust as our discoverlosangeles.com. We'll be launching that early next week. And all of this is meant to entice more robust attendance here in Los Angeles. The final thing I'd like to share with this committee is that we are in the process, the early process, I might add, of renewing our Los Angeles Tourism Marketing District stature. Our first TMD was established a five-year term, which completes itself in 2016. Our steering committee, given the length of time that we learned before that it kind of takes to do this, has decided that we should start this process early. So we'll be coming to this committee and to the city to talk about our next renewal, which we hope to be for a 10-year term. It took us 27 months before. I doubt it will take that long this time because of the commitments of the city, of this committee, but we're going to start the process early so we don't run the risk of losing funding in this very important process. But that is our tourism marketing district that the Los Angeles Tourism Board oversees on the part of the LA Tourism Marketing District, and I'm open to whatever questions you might have.
No, we appreciate this collaboration, and I was interested, we've had a chance to chat over the last couple of days, really, on this issue of cultural tourism, but talk a little bit about what we're doing to attract our local visitors. I think the figure I heard was half the folks who come to L.A. stay with friends and relatives, so they're not staying in hotels, but they're staying at home. We talked about this robust effort to producing TV advertising in 6 markets, digital advertising in Sacramento, San Diego, Phoenix, digital support in Chicago, New York, Fresno, international support in Australia, China, Canada. What are we doing in Los Angeles to remind friends and neighbors and visitors that there are some things in Los Angeles they should be seeing?
Yes. Well, not nearly enough. But I want to share with others that might not understand the reference you just made. Last year in Los Angeles, we hosted more than 16.5 million overnight guests staying in our hotels. But our research tells us that more people than that stayed on people's couches in Los Angeles. It's an interesting scenario that we have in LA that other cities don't have. Lots of people, friends and relatives, come and stay with us at our homes. All of us have experienced it. So there's a need to talk to that element of the local population about what's going on in Los Angeles. Unfortunately, our funding has been specifically earmarked to bring people from the outside in, and so there's a great opportunity if we can find and collaborate on additional funding to talk to the more than 18 million people that are within the sound of our voice. The wonderful thing about that for our children, for our residents, is that there's so much going on in LA. We have 105 museums in Los Angeles. Most people can only talk about 2 or 3. We have more theater companies than New York City does, including Broadway. So we have more restaurants. This week we're running the restaurant week. We're the largest restaurant program in the United States, including New York, with almost 380 restaurants participating this week in the restaurant week. But who knows that? Well, we need to find ways of enhancing the revenue available to the tourism board to use to talk to our internal folks because there's so much going on. And if we can get our young people to going to our museums, to learning about the rich history of LA, all of that is going to enhance the quality of life, bring in more tourism dollars, so there's more opportunity there.
Members? Comments? Questions?
I am appreciative of your report. Fortunately, we have a committee to go to. I'm interested in what's the numbers on these who are visiting but not staying at hotels. Is this a product of our weather, a product of our larger living accommodations? You see somebody with a really lovely apartment in Manhattan and it's, kind of modest by our standards and our homes are much larger. Is it a product that we don't have enough hotel space and that we're really undercapacitated by our hotel space and people are forced to do that? So what are the numbers on tourism that are not in the traditional, let me go stay at a hotel?
Well, that's a very good question, and all of those possibilities could lead to these numbers of people that are staying over. I will share with you that we are a very diverse group of people. We speak more than 200 languages. We have a lot of friends and relatives.
Yes.
Our number one foreign market is Mexico. And so many of our Mexican relatives that come in stay with friends and family. So that's one thing. They don't stay in hotels. On your couch. They stay on your couch. So because we're such a diverse group of people and we know so many people around the world, often if they're coming from France, if they're coming from England, they'll have folks that live here in LA, and it's always comfortable to stay. The issue of a sufficient number of hotel rooms is a critical one. Why is it? Because we are currently running in the city close to 80% occupancy. And if you take out Sundays out of a calendar of 365 days, you take those Sundays out and look at really the nights that people really stay in hotels, you could argue that the hotel occupancy is much, much higher. If the hotels are so busy, that means that a lot of people that want to stay can't. If they don't have a friend or relative, they just don't come. So it's important for us from a tourism point of view, from a macroeconomic point of view for the city, to build more hotel rooms, particularly around our convention center, because we are competing a little bit with our hands tied behind our back. We've got about less than 2,000 rooms around our convention center. You go to San Francisco, they get more than 11,000 within walking distance of the center, that kind of thing. So a combination of what you described really leads to this robust number of people that stay in friends and relatives' homes. Even with more hotel rooms, we won't stop that, and that's a good thing because they want to come and visit friends and family. But there's opportunity for us to talk to those mothers that are the concierges in those homes about what's going on locally. Because they've got children, teenagers, what are they going to do with them on Saturday? There's a real opportunity as we think about how to touch them more often for us to be able to do that as we kind of noodle how to find the funding.
Great.
I'm impressed the fact that we have the most museums, the most theater, the most venues. I mean, these things are astounding when you think about it, that we have more than New York, both the museums and theaters, more than Washington. Nominal assets to bring people to our community and know that we need to continue to work. So, for example, those who do visit from, say, Latin America, Mexico, et cetera, it appears in Mexico City there's a museum on every other block, right? If we have more museums, the most in the United States, I agree, I'm with you. I could identify a handful, but I could not tell you all of them, and it seems that information does need to get out to the local home tourist concierge. And so we need a strategy for that.
Yes.
We're also getting Harry Potter.
Yes, we are.
Remember when we met a couple of weeks ago, we mentioned how many tourists does Orlando generate as a result of Harry Potter at Universal?
The published number is in the multi-millions, the single-digit millions, and we expect the same here in early 2017 when our Universal studios, and I was just there last Friday, and it's a great big hole in the ground in the back of Universal. They're building the new Harry Potter exhibit. It's going to impact or bring millions of people more to Los Angeles, particularly from the Pacific Rim,
Right.
where we're the gateway.
You're right, and it's an exciting opportunity, but we also need to be alerting our visitors to opportunities to visit Leimert Park or Chinatown or Central Avenue or Alvera Street, and again, I think that's also our challenge, and you're right. The sad part is there are lots of residents in L.A. who've not had a chance to visit other parts of L.A., and so you're playing an exciting role, an important role in encouraging economic development. You certainly have highlighted some obstacles and opportunities, and we appreciate your service and look forward to working with you, collaborating with you as we come up with the kinds of strategies that are going to be important, necessary, and effective. We're serious about trying to make sure our city is moving in the right direction. Members, any other comments?
What could we do? Is there one, two, three things, one thing that the council could do to facilitate tourism, tourists, particularly interested in some of the ethnic tourism?
Yes.
You mentioned Alvera Street. What are the things we can do? I know we had wide in the streets. I know we put the benches. I know we put the trees. On the other hand, if we don't have parking, then we've done all that for naught. So what are some of the things that the council could do to really fundamentally help tourism?
Well, everything that we're talking about now, we talk in our language as we call that the cultural tourism.
Mm-hmm.
So we have a rich tapestry of cultural opportunities in Los Angeles that people, as the councilman pointed out, are just not aware of. We try to make them, with limited funds, aware of them. For example, our Rose Bowl parade, which we sponsor every year, this year tried to talk to some of the cultural assets of the city. We had the Olivera Street. We had the Watchtower on it, and like something like 800, some gigantic number of people see that, 800 million people, I think. And we did it specifically to raise awareness about the cultural assets. And we had a lot of people say, well, what is that? See, if it was the Empire State Building, people would know right away what it was. So we're trying to raise the awareness that we have the Watchtower, that we have these wonderful places in the city. Specifically, what the council can do to help tourism, we can demonstrate a correlation between the dollars we spend, and we're a nonprofit on behalf of the city, and the growth of tourism and the city's pocketbooks when it comes to the TOT tax and other taxes. At one point, 2% of the 14% came to this organization to promote the city. Because we had hard times at one point, that was reduced to 1%. So we're working with that 1%. But when you look at that in contrast to how the money has grown as a result of the investments in tourism, we would argue that there is an opportunity, hopefully, to reconsider giving the tourism board these dollars, because there's a direct correlation between, it's not money just being spent, it's an investment. And there's a direct correlation between that and how much more TOT tax we bring in. In the last 2 years, that TOT tax for the city has grown by double-digit millions of dollars as a result of more and more people coming into the city. So in specific answer to your question, we would ask that the council and others would consider thinking about reinstating the 2 points of the tax so that we can churn it in this wonderful business model. It's a wonderful business model for tourism, because tourists come in, they pay the tax, and then they leave. They don't use the services. They don't use the police, the firemen, the ambulances. They don't use any of that. They just pay the tax and leave. If they weren't there to pay the taxes, the people that own homes, all of us, would have to somehow pay those taxes for those services. So it's a little bit of a no-brainer, if you will, to say we need more of those kind of people. Let's invest more money to get more of those kind of people to come in, because it's a wonderful cycle of investment, tourism. So hope that answers your question.
Yes, thank you.
And just lastly, I want to echo the previous speakers and compliment Miranda and Rick Scott and their team, because we are a little different in terms of bids. They have really been really supportive and very easy to work with. So.
Different but effective. And so we appreciate, as I said, the unique role that business improvement districts play, yours specifically, and the efforts of the city in coordinating and collaborating. And so, again, we thank you. And members, unless there's an objection, we will approve the report of the LA Tourism and Marketing Bid Committee. And if there is no other business, I think this meeting is adjourned.
No, that clears the desk.
Thank you. This meeting is adjourned.
Thank you, sir.